so I know my zone.
It'll be okay. It'll give authenticity to the whole thing. In fact, every once in a while, we reach up and slap the
it.
camera.
Throw some lens flares on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Get a flashlight and shine in the lens a little bit.
Alrighty, we're doing this. So this is a pretty exciting moment. We are here with our first actual guest here in the Odd Pod.
Yes.
And this is for Facebook in the Morning. And I thought we'd bring in Mr. Andrew Tedford, who's a longtime professor of digital media arts program. Andrew, I have a special treat for you. I actually queued up a theme song for you,
Nice.
which I feel is appropriate. And I think I got to roll that right now. You know this one.
Oh, I know this one.
Best song ever. Yes, so every time we have Tedford on the show, we have to play the theme from Airwolf. And simply because Airwolf is, like the show itself is like pretty good, but the theme song, like clearly one of the best theme songs ever made.
That one, 18, all the classics.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Blue Thunder is nothing next to Airwolf.
Because Airwolf has missiles.
That's right. They never kill anyone.
No.
You notice that? It's kind of like the A-Team.
Yeah.
Like they can shoot 1,000,000 missiles and they can blow up everything around the target, but then eventually the target has a glitch.
I like how the
and they have
cars
to
would
bail
like
out.
explode, big fireball, and then they come out.
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
out of the car.
Oh man,
That's awesome.
I need some Tylenol or something. I have a mild headache from that Hellfire missile.
Yes. I got a little bit of sunburn from the flames.
Yeah. So that's very topical, actually, because what I wanted to start off with today is a subject that some of our viewers on the show have been talking about, which is VFX.
Yep.
And I thought this would be a good thing to start with because if I'm not mistaken, you're actually coming from some background in animation and so forth. And originally, maybe you can tell us, what did you originally go to school for?
Originally,
Or not originally. I know that's
well,
like the
originally
chicken farm.
it was,
But-
that was preschool. Graphic design. I went to take graphic design. I did that for a little bit. Then I realized that you could only do so much with paper. Then I went back to school to take 3D animation.
Okay.
So 3D animation, I had a very short career doing that. So
Yeah.
a little bit of visual effects stuff.
Was that with OCAD? You went to OCAD?
No, I went through, it was through Seneca, but it was before it was part of their program. It was called the Digital Media Center. So it was almost like a private school. It was more or less like the precursor to their animation program they have now that runs there.
I think actually, do you know James McIntosh?
Sounds
J-Mac,
familiar.
as they call him?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was one of my bosses at Organic.
Okay.
And I think he actually went there when the program was set up that way. So there's
Yeah,
a lot
it
of
was-
changes since then.
Well, it was short. Like the course I took it was 12 weeks. 12 weeks. It was soft homage. It was every day from 9 till 5. We had access to the lab 24 hours a day. So you do your lessons till 5. You go grab a bite to eat. Then we were working until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's what you did at the time. 'Cause
Yeah, well, that part I don't think has changed.
No,
Actually, if you, even Zad over here, who went and did the animation arts program, similar kind of thing.
Yep.
Like dudes would be in their cubicles through the night.
Well, I remember sort of near the tail end when you're doing your rendering, like we'd set up the renders, and there was a really gross couch. Wake me up in a half hour, and you'd go and crash out on the couch. And somebody would come up and go, "Okay, time to get up." And you'd get up and check your render, and they would crash out on the couch.
Your face makes that sound as you leave the vinyl.
Yeah,
like,
it was kind of a. It was kind of icky, but
covered in
that's
humid.
what you did. We didn't have the workstations at home. They were all SGI machines,
Yeah.
so the software was a ridiculous price. So we couldn't do the stuff at home. We had to stay at the lab to do it.
I didn't have a computer when I went first year in Seneca.
Yep.
I actually did not have a computer at home, so I was pretty much there the whole time.
Well,
Some
even
people are in that position.
even now, I see there's some students that are same boat. They either have a really old laptop that just can't handle the software, or they are saving up to get a laptop after the first semester, something like that.
So let's talk about what happens, after graduation, because I think that experience while you're in school is fairly typical for people who are doing these programs.
Yep.
And of course, the goal is you're going to get out and get working, and some people do. Some people have a harder time of it. You actually became a teacher for the digital media arts program at Sagan.
Before that, I actually got a teaching job downtown at a school down here, and it was. I was applying for a 3D teaching job, and it turned out to be an interactive stuff. So it was like Flash, web design, Photoshop, sort of a bunch of that stuff. So that's where I started, and then the job at Seneca came up when I actually went back to school for Maya, to upgrade to Maya. And when I was there, one of the other students who was a part-time student or part-time instructor up at Seneca mentioned they were looking for somebody to do Flash for a summer because somebody was taking off. I was interested, and that's how I ended up getting into Seneca. But at that point, I had already done quite a bit of client work. I was trying to put I was trying to put 3D into Flash when we had no business even trying to do that. But it was what I did. The benefit I did find from taking 3D and sort of the background of graphic design and the previous stuff is you find quick ways to get the job done.
Yes.
Like a lot of times, like especially 3D, like I even tell students now, if you're messing, you work on your model, you save. At some point, you might mess up the model so bad, it's actually easier just to start again, and you actually build faster. When I went back to take Maya, like the whole idea of those courses was to make your demo reel, submit it to the big boys like the Disney ILMs and those guys, right? And go to Hollywood.
Okay, we should talk about that a little bit, because that's something I've been sort of trying to get some discussion going around on the site. That is, like, even now, that still seems like that's the goal. Like, the goal is always to go out, especially if you're in visual effects or post-grad programs, go out and get on the big special effects film, or maybe like, TV series or something like that. And I don't know, I feel like it's really hard. Like, it's very, very difficult. Even with good training, there's only so many spots open on those type of productions. And, some of my buddies that I went to school with, like, they're doing that for a living now. And they find that, they're sort of always in job hunt mode. And there's always, like, one production will end, and then maybe they got to travel. If they want to keep working, they got to go somewhere else.
Or you got to have your next gig lined up before that contract's over.
So I saw one exception with this, which was a buddy of mine, Scott. And he came out on, I think it was the second fall tour.
Yep. I remember Scott. Yep.
Yeah, and Scott was having a hard time of it, even though he's got great skills. And on the tour, he came in contact with some of the guys from Tehan and Lax. And it sort of opened his eyes that his skills could be used elsewhere. Like, actually, the web has come along to a point where it can serve up pretty good quality stuff. And he went working for those guys until he was finally able to get his foot in the door in VFX and go and do what he wanted. He went out to BC. I think he's still working there now. And so I wonder, like, how much that option is emphasized in programs, in your opinion?
I'm not sure. Well, it's funny because that story I still tell that story in class now, especially with fourth semester students, because you get, that fourth semester, spaz where you just go, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I, as soon as I'm done my classes, what's my next step? And I tell them, I say, there's Scott was a student that did the DMA course. He took the visual effects course. He had no clue that visual effects was such a big thing on the web until he went to Tehan and Lex. And I think it was the TELUS stuff that he ended up working on, right?
That's right, yeah. It was a lot of 3D rendering,
so
a lot of video.
3D rendering, and also being able to port that out for the web and that kind of thing. When I went back
They won awards for that stuff.
Oh, for the TELUS stuff?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they won all kinds of awards with that stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
The course. When I went back to take Maya, my goal was that, because I had already been working at the time and teaching. I was teaching downtown. When I took the course, it was day on, day off. So I would teach on my days off. come back and go to class on those days, and absolutely a mess when you're leaving 3-4 o'clock in the morning after working on stuff, and then you got to go teach a bunch of classes, right?
Yeah.
But my take when I went to take that course was I wasn't interested in making a demo reel. I wasn't interested in going working for the big movie stuff or anything like that. I actually bought a domain, and I was looking at building my own 3D animated character online and do like a series that way.
Yeah.
So my goal was completely different. Like that the rush to get that demo reel done. I spent the majority of my time just learning the tools, doing little tests of sort of popping it at Flash at the time and CG. I had a friend of mine that I went to school with who's an animator. I asked him to rig up my character for me. And that was the idea of going back to take Maya, was specifically to build something that you could own.
Yes.
And put it online, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was my goal for that course.
Yeah, that's a subject that is kind of dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people who wind up going towards interactive and so forth are kind of DIY mentality.
Yep.
They want to own the stuff that they're working on, as opposed to, like just working on something that somebody else will own. And it's possible when you do interactive. Like like here in Toronto, there's a lot of, for instance, indie game companies that have started up from guys who worked in studios and worked in shops and so forth, and at some point said, "That's cool, but I want to do something that I can put my name on. That at the end of the day, this is an IP that I have."
Yep. Well, this is a good example here. Is 10 years ago you couldn't do this. Like the amount of money you'd have to spend to set up a studio. Mm-hmm. You couldn't. There's no way.
Well, exactly.
But now, like for a few $1,000s for a camera, a bunch of software, like you can have a full-blown studio set
and
up.
the distribution.
Yeah,
like,
and
YouTube
unlimited.
didn't exist when I went to Seneca. That's the craziness of it. Like I was building my own, custom video applications for guys. I was doing
I should have brought in the
sites for independent bands.
I should have brought in the box of manuals for Maya. We don't have manuals. It's all on disc or not even disc. I don't even look at disc.
Yeah.
It's YouTube.
YouTube.
How do you do this?
Exactly.
How do you do that, right?
So here's another question I have for you, as somebody who's been involved with the school system for a long time. Today, someone can pretty much learn anything on their own. Mm-hmm. Like, you can get sets of DVDs and so forth. And I don't know about you, but I've never had anybody in our industry ask me to see, my qualifications. My qualifications are like, what have I built?
A portfolio online.
Yeah.
It's what you've done, and that's what you're there to, take the course, you get the instruction, you get the paperwork, which is good because it's it's developing that structure, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's still, if you're going to school for X, and as soon as you're done, you think you're going to be doing X, and you're not going to continue doing Y and Z and A, B, like everything else.
Yeah.
If you don't like education, it's the wrong industry because you're always learning something. There's always a new iPhone every 18 months coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some news, something or other coming out. Twitter's not that old, and it's
not at all.
You watch.
It's part of people's lives now.
And what's interesting is you watch like the newscasts now, and they have specific. This is from the internet, and here's the Twitter. Like it's part of the culture now. Is the online stuff.
It's growing up.
Yeah. Well, the meteorite, last Saturday or last Friday, right? The one over Russia. Like, what's the chances of that being captured
by like a news crew? or something?
Yeah, by a news crew.
Yeah,
absolutely. Everything that was shown through all the newsreels were all cameras in cars or cell phone cameras. Everything was.
Unless the news crew had a way of making the meteorite up here.
Perhaps they did.
Yeah. All right. So.
Damn meteor.
We were talking a little bit about meteors, yes, and rigging them.
Yes.
I wanted to talk to you a bit about your new venture, Andrew. You're taking a little bit of a departure, and but we were talking earlier about how people sort of forget that they can use these skills they're picking up for lots of different things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't think anybody went to school specifically to learn how to adjust text in an ad forever.
They didn't. No, really?
I know I didn't.
What?
Most people that I know who went to...
I was specifically looking for things like that.
Oh, excellent. Where do I apply? I mean, most people that I know of that went to do digital media arts or take a VFX program or something like that, like they had something that they wanted to work on. For a lot of guys, it was a band or something like that. And, then you start doing gigs because you got to pay the bills and so forth. But at some point, you got to make a decision to pursue something that's yours if you're going to do it.
Yeah, something that you own, or it's something that you work on outside. Now, when I took the 3D course, when I actually went back, so I was working downtown at a different college, and on my days off, I ended up going back to take Maya. My whole point of going back to take Maya, and at the time I'd already been working on web stuff and in the industry a little bit that way. But when I went back to take Maya, my goal for that course wasn't to make a demo reel for ILM or Disney or whoever it was, what the majority of the class was. It was to develop my own product and put it online, something that I owned and something that you could build a brand around.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a, 3D animated web series or cartoon, and then you could build around that. And I think with some students get it and some don't necessarily get it. They think, they learn X, Y, and Z, and that's what they'll be doing for their career. Yeah. Which is not going to happen.
Well, things change pretty rapidly.
Yeah, it's
so. A
new
lot
iPhone,
of those
new
positions
this, new that every you watch the feeds today, like every other day there's some new something coming out.
Right. So tell me about this new venture.
The food truck. So we're putting together a food truck. It's been something I've been looking at for a couple of years. I know I had you up and Adam and some other guys up to the...
we got to taste test
up to the house like quite a few years ago. We were sort of playing around with some ideas and throwing this out there. When I'm looking at this food truck, sort of it's a new thing, like in Toronto. It's 2010 was when it started. Even when I was trying to do some research on it, was really hard because there just wasn't data.
I don't know where you'd even find.
Well, what I found really interesting, and it's funny how it's almost parallel to sort of the interactive industry, like from the heydays of Flash and how, in those days, if you wanted to figure out something, you could email the guy who made the website. Hey, how did you do that?
Right.
And 9 times out of the 10, they would send you the source files.
Right.
Oh, this is how I did it. There's a lot of like that sharing going back and forth. That's how I learned a lot of my stuff. And the food truck industry seems to be sort of almost that same kind of idea. Is when I was looking for information and that kind of stuff, I ended up emailing a couple trucks and said, hey, I'm thinking of opening a truck up. Can you give me an idea on some numbers and what do you think of it and do you like it and that kind of stuff. And everybody was like, we don't have really real numbers because we haven't been able to run an entire year yet. But here's some ideas of what we're looking at. Even as far as I contacted a truck, the original one that really started getting this thing going, and said, hey, I've never worked in the service industry. I've never been a cook or anything like that. Can I come out and hang it on your truck for a day and try it out?
That's cool.
And he was like, sure, man, come on down.
No kidding. So you got to just go there and hang out.
Yeah, came down for the day and worked a service. And it was great talking with him because he was a chef. He was from Australia. He worked, all over in that sort of area of the planet. And then he came here. The
planet is your town when you have a truck.
Well, what I found really refreshing is he didn't sugarcoat anything. He said, it's a ton of work. If you're getting in this for, the wrong reasons, you're not going to last. It's not a trend. It's, we spend a lot of money on these trucks.
It's a business.
It's a business, like a full-out business.
It's not a hobby.
No, it's not a hobby, and it's also the combination of the social media that starts rolling into it as well.
Well, that's something I wanted to talk to you about because I'm wondering, given your background and so forth, what you think you're going to be able to leverage that would help make you successful in this new thing that you're doing.
Social for sure. I think it's also sort of this background because I've always been interested in like food and cooking, and I like that creative process. I like the craftsmanship that goes into it to actually produce something.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at this idea originally 3 years ago, I guess that's sort of when we started get talking about it. One of the first things we did when we started looking at the name and the branding and sort of that whole advertising design aspect of it, I went online and I started searching for web domains.
Yeah.
Is this one available? Is this one available? What do you think of, if this one's available, can I get the Twitter handles for that? Can I get, all these different social elements that you plug in?
I know for us and for a lot of our friends, this is sort of how we are trained to think.
Yep.
Because we've worked on countless campaigns and so forth, and we get paid to, raise these things for other people. So we might take it for granted a little bit, but for a lot of people, they sort of think of those things afterwards. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of one of the big differences here, which is why I'm saying that, these type of skills, they can be leveraged for lots of things.
Oh, it's like even some of the books I read, like the, how to start your own food truck business, like the, these quick start things, right? Mm-hmm. They're all very similar. You do pick up some nice information from different ones, but, they've got a whole chapter on the social aspect of it. But it's funny, it's not the first chapter, which I think it probably should be. Like
That's interesting.
If you got an idea and you think it's a good one and it will work well for this truck concept, some of the first things you should do is lock down the Facebook stuff,
right,
and the domains and the Twitter handles and Grooveshark, and you just go down the list of sort of the things and sort of the background from working in CG and advertising and web design and drawing and skipping school when I was younger so I could cook stuff. It's funny how it all sort of has combined into this sort of enterprise that makes use of all those things.
Yeah.
It's just not you're just not necessarily making a kitchen on wheels, right? It's more than that. It's trying to build an experience and getting followers and just not serving good food and quality food at reasonable prices.
Yeah.
But
that's what opens the door. It's not necessarily what keeps it open.
And you sort of build that online community as well. We've got plans in there to open source. Just because of the terms from what we use, like some of the recipe ideas. Mm-hmm. Like, here's one of the ideas on the truck, and if you wanted, if you can't make it out, here's a recipe online. Like, go for it. Like, I'd love to see what you modify. If you modify it, throw it up on our Facebook page, throw it up on Twitter. Like,
there's so much you could do.
Yeah, like it's when you think of like all the projects and client work and all this stuff that we've all worked on over the last whatever years. It's really unlimited of what you can do.
And getting more so all the time. Like, interactive doesn't mean sitting at home on a computer anymore.
Oh no, that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, people have at any given time, people have 2 or 3 screens on them that they're carrying around. You don't have to be locked inside anymore, which means that there's whole new areas of opportunity, and there's other areas of opportunity that sort of went away for a while and can be brought back again by the addition of the technology, which I find really interesting.
Well, even when I was researching truck builders, there's quite a few places. Now, it's different because just the industry in the States has been there longer. There's still the challenges you get in some of the cities down there. Like for the longest time in Chicago, trucks weren't allowed to have like knives on their truck. Just weird, archaic law,
really?
Right? Yeah. Or it had to be... you're reheating food.
I can see like no samurai swords.
But some of the tools that you need. But it's, you know, that's part of the challenge too. Like it's interesting sort of getting into this industry of looking at the food truck and everything else, because you can actually use some of the skills you picked up during advertising as part of your marketing, because you're still educating a lot of the people you talk to. Like one of the challenges is each, you know, city or town have their own bylaws. Everyone's different. Each one has own permits. If I want to serve in Toronto, I've got to get a permit for Toronto. If I want to serve in, you know, Richmond Hill, I got to get a permit for up in Richmond Hill.
Yeah. That's a little different.
So that's a little different, but you can also go back to some of your advertising and just sort of that skill set you build learning about that industry, and approach, you know, instead of going to a city and saying, this is what I want to do, you know, how about we collaborate on something? This is what I want to do. Like, let me know exactly, you know, all the things I have to fill out to keep you guys happy.
Right.
And, you know, if you have an event coming up, let's use this as an engine to also promote that as well. It's all like everything's connected, I think, at the end of the day. It's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, even in here, like, you don't need a television station to shoot stuff.
Not at all. Not at all. It's wide open. You just need the initiative, and you need to put in the work, because people still want good quality.
Yeah, like the quality, and then the
homemade can't replace good quality.
Yeah, the handheld camera stuff.
Well,
which is only done now for effect, right? You see.
Yes.
But before, that's how you shot stuff.
There's probably like an After Effects plugin that gives you a handheld look.
It shakes. I'm walking around with the camera.
Yeah, but I think it's a point well taken. You know, about being versatile and being willing to try new things and just follow your passions, because I don't know, without that, it becomes a very, very difficult industry. And it should be fun. It should be good. I mean, you work hard for sure.
Yeah, and there'll be things that you don't like, but that's nature, right?
Yeah.
Like everything that, like, every client project I've worked on, it follows the same peaks and valleys. Is awesome, 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 and at some point you're really hating it. And then it's done, and you go, that's all over. And then a couple weeks later, you go, oh, remember when we were working on that project and this happened? That was awesome. Just that process and what you learn from those things. And, you know, it does, in my opinion, it does all add up to you know, better experience maybe, just with some of that background and some of that information that, you know, not the average person necessarily has from doing, you know, advertising work.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, as you're sort of in preparation mode here, you've been working on like a graphic design package, and you've been working with young talent on that.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that decision and why you would go that route, because I know you know a lot of very highly experienced people and so forth in Toronto. A lot of your students have gone out and done really well for themselves as well. So why the decision to look towards like one of our new grads when you're clearly very invested in this new venture?
Part of the hardest decision was letting that go for myself, because, you know, designer and developer, and because I like that stuff. I like Photoshop. I like Illustrator. I like that creative aspect of coming up with something, right? That was probably the hardest thing, was to go, okay, I'm going to act more like a client.
Yeah.
Not a, you know.
Not a douchey
not
client.
Not a client, but a client that knows better.
Yeah.
But I ended up hiring.
I think all of us, you know, we like to think we won't be that guy.
Yes, but
like
it's
if
funny.
If we're ever a client, we're not going to be.
But when you're in the client mode, you're aware of what you're doing, which I think was actually a huge advantage, because I actually hired a former grad to help out. I emailed him out of the blue. I said, hey, I'm working on, you know, no pressure. I'm working on this whole branding idea for this concept we're working on. Are you interested? And he was like, yeah, sure. And off we went. And it was funny, because I was like, we kept all the information, and it was almost like even though it's like a lot of work, starting a like this new business venture and everything else, but it was also a great opportunity as a teaching tool too as well. Is I could, sort of play that role of the client, but also play the role of like, not necessarily educator, but just aware of some of the pitfalls you're going to run into, right?
Yeah.
Even when we were doing the work back and forth, there was a few things that he did that if it was like a client, like a agency client job, would have been just bad news.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
because I'm aware of what he did and why he did it, and it's, you got a chance to work on something, fun and cool, and I basically gave him the rules of saying, this is sort of what I want, but it's up to you. It was really hard for me to sort of try to keep my hands off it.
Yeah.
Even though
yeah.
I kind of, Steve will totally disagree with me on some of that.
Yeah, well, it's not always going to be what you pictured in that scenario.
Yeah, like
it can still be darn good.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like what I was my original concept, 180, and the result that he came up with was,
There we go. All right. So, so this is really interesting, Andrew, because one of the things that I wonder if it could be done a little bit better in our industry is we have internships. We don't have apprenticeships.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like there is a difference there.
Oh, there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, like I find in a lot of places an internship is kind of a sink or swim type of thing, where it's sort of like, here's, a dozen students, and some of them are going to work and some of them aren't going to work, and then we're going to keep the ones that work and the rest can go do whatever.
Yep.
Whereas I find that weird because while I haven't been, like a registered trades person, I was always like general laborer dude because I sucked.
I've done lots of that too.
Yeah, and I mean I've had lots of name badges and hairnets and stuff, but when I would work around the trades people, there was always kind of that sense of pride in the internships that people would select to start a career.
Yep.
And when you were in, that's what you're going to do. Now, there could be other things you could branch off in, like when I worked with, plumbers, some of the guys would go and be steam fitters, and they'd take what they needed to do that, and, others would go in another direction. Some would do residential or industrial or so forth. There was different avenues, but they started on the same base. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, the good side of our business is you can go and do whatever. But the bad side is that, we don't have that base. So it's really hard to know what you're going to land in. So in your experience of working along with one of our new grads in something that's important to you, that you're passionate about, you have the understanding of a business owner in this scenario, what do you look for? And what are you trying to give that young person so that you get the best out of them?
Well, I was looking at this idea, and so I ended up hiring a recent grad to do the development for the logo and stuff. And I think I was mentioning that the hardest thing for me personally from coming from this kind of stuff and going into it like as a business owner is letting go of that creative control and having somebody else, this is what I want, and having them develop that branding and identity.
Yeah.
What I found when I was starting to even just think about this concept and sort of going through the process, what a great opportunity to, have recent grads, or not necessarily interns, but pay them their fee, whatever it happens to be, as their freelance, and use this as a learning opportunity as well. Because I have worked on, dealt with clients and done the creative, and have been in the industry, so you learn lots from that aspect of it, and it was a great chance to give that back, almost be like a, not necessarily mentor, but provide a platform where you can give them a real job. It's not a school assignment.
Yeah.
This is a business. Like, we've spent a lot of money already just to get where we are now, and give them that real world experience where they're going to learn, but still be aware that they're going to make mistakes, and, not being a client and you're freaking out, but saying, hey, next time do this instead and don't do that. But give them the opportunity to learn.
So a bit of investment.
Yeah, like invest into it is for sure.
Yeah.
Let them make mistakes, because then you'll learn on those.
Yeah. If you're looking for them to be as passionate about this thing as you are, then you have to meet them at least part of the way.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I wanted to do is I didn't want to, like, I gave them sort of my scope. This is what I want to do. This is sort of my, here's a bunch of reference material, and this is sort of what I'm thinking. But I wanted them to have ownership of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to, be the, can you move that over a couple pixels, and can you, I don't like that color. Even though I did do that, I sent them a bunch of color tests.
There's no way you didn't do that.
I don't like that purple. No,
But
I don't like that color.
You didn't want to do it.
Forget about all those colors altogether. I want these ones instead. But even when I was doing that, I was doing that on purpose in some cases, just, this is what you're going to run into. Like, save all your files, back stuff up, be aware, like, changes are going to happen, and just, that's just the nature of the business.
Yeah. And not to be the guy who says, yeah, that was good, and then takes it and redoes it.
Oh yeah, like absolutely. Like even like when he sent me the final logo design, which Velo Designs, look him up. Awesome work. He's got a ton.
Maybe I'll have him on the show. That'd be cool.
He's got a ton. That would be awesome. And we could talk about. Well, that's another thing that I want to sort of explore as well, is the logo and food and that creative, like make that connection as well. Mm-hmm. Where was I talking about the logo? Coming up with, when he sent me the final version. Here's the final version, good to go. Being a typical client, can you change just one little thing? Which wasn't a big deal. But then when I was looking a little closer to the file, there was actually some of the line art was off by a pixel, literally a pixel. Mm-hmm. One thing you have to remember, and talking to him, I said, like if this was on a business card, you would never see it. On a website, you'd probably never see it. This is going on the wrap of the truck. It's going to be, 10 feet by whatever.
That pixel could become an inch.
That pixel, you'll see it for sure. Yeah. And the only reason I really found it is because I was looking at this other thing I wanted to change. And looking at the file, I went, oh, yeah, that's kind of weird. So I sent it, like I took a screen cap of it, I circled it, I said, check this out. I said, told him the exact same thing. As soon as this gets blown up, you're going to see that for sure. The only reason I kind of noticed that was at school, I do a skateboard assignment.
The skateboard assignment, yeah.
That's like a first semester thing we do in school. It's like for one of the art classes. So it's...
They design a deck.
Yeah, give them students a theme, and they have to make a skateboard deck for that, based on that theme. And sometimes I try to do the same assignment. I can't do it all the time, but I try to do it, and then I also share, this is what I did, and just to try to give them just more education, or this is how I figured out how to get around this problem. But going back to my very first time doing the assignment with the students, I did the same thing. As soon as I blew up my artwork to get printed out, I missed a pixel here, and there's something wasn't colored in here. So there's these little gaps that on the computer screen you'd never see. But because this is going to a print medium, next time I better make sure I color that in a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, it's a learning process, right?
Yeah. And making a positive environment, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we didn't talk about this beforehand, but one of the issues that I have a bit of a beef with, and I've done a little piece on the show previously about, is like I often come across this sort of prevailing notion with industry folks that people are coming out of the programs with a sense of entitlement. Yep. Now this is something that I'm not sure that I totally agree with, or not to the extent that I hear it, because I am involved with different advisory committees and so forth, and I get this comment a lot, and I rarely see this comment challenged, and I wonder a little bit why that is, because I deal with a lot of students, and what I find is that quite often what comes across as a sense of entitlement is actually a lack of confidence that somebody's overcompensating for. And if you can just relax them a little bit, like just get them to chill out so that they're actually saying what they're really thinking rather than what they think they have to say to get ahead. You start getting some good stuff out of people. Like, it doesn't happen all of the time, but that kind of relaxed environment where people feel like, yeah, it's okay for me to listen to somebody else. It's not a sign of weakness if I say, oh yeah, you're right about that, and my idea can be better combined with your idea. What's your take on that, Andrew?
Yeah, like I remember that post. I put a post up on the Facebook in the comments, sort of my sort of baseline thought on that. You know, I would, like you said, like if you get Steve on here to talk to him, like that's sort of what I was looking at when I was thinking of getting Steve to work on it was, you know, I don't want to be, you know, over his shoulder, you know, constantly. And I want him to do his thing and figure out his style. And you know, I like his work that he does. I like the work up on his website. You know, it's just wasn't just school assignment. It was, you know, he took command of his own stuff and did a bunch of work for his own projects and different things. I think he ended up doing work for a company, I believe, out of Mexico, maybe, for a beer label of all things, right?
Cool.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. I like beer.
I like beer.
If anybody out there who's a beer sponsor is listening to this show and wants to send like a 6-pack for sampling over, we're down with that.
Perhaps I can use it in a recipe, and we could
do
a whole thing.
Perhaps I could drink it.
Yes, and eat it.
We all have our roles to play. Sorry, man, I totally derailed us there.
No, it's the same thing when with getting Steve to do the work was it's, you know, here's my ideas, but my emails to him constantly was it's open game. Like if you want to, you know, try something, try it. If you want to try this idea out, and we'll get some feedback. And what I did find is when there was no real restrictions for the creative of it, much better results, and we actually got along a lot faster because there was, you know, give me 6 examples, or whatever it was, right?
So would he get that out of, you know, stuff that he's keen on right now, like he's, you know, getting his inspiration from?
And that's one reason I wanted Steve to work on it, because he sort of had the design skills, and his style was kind of sort of what I was looking for anyways.
Yeah. So you had some indications ahead of time.
Yeah.
But if he didn't have that online presence already, if he didn't have some examples of things that he had been doing, you know, maybe those things aren't like big paying jobs, but it gives you a sense that this is somebody who's into what they do.
Well,
right?
it's also it's the networking stuff, and it's the conversations you have with people outside of whatever the project you're working on. I just had a meeting yesterday with somebody I worked with when I was at Organic.
Oh, cool.
He's working on a project that he wanted some of my feedback on based on the food truck stuff. In the same time during the conversation, he mentioned, hey, we're also looking for some designers for some upcoming projects. Do you know anybody?
Well,
hey, I know somebody.
Yeah.
Here's his site. He did that my logo. I said, you know, he's a great guy to work for, and you know, bang the stuff out. He asked, like, are you happy with it? And I said, yeah, I'm absolutely happy with, you know, like he knocked it out of the park for what he came up with.
Yeah.
And he goes, all right, send me his contact information. But that's, that's
the
nature,
key right there, because you had something you could pass along.
Yeah, and it's the process of getting the work is, you know, he knows somebody, and, you know, maybe it won't be a job next week, but, you know, a month from now.
It all adds up.
Yes, you know, tomorrow, whatever the case is, like something will come up, and because it's a recommendation that somebody I've worked with and I know, you know, more than likely they'll contact them and go with them, right?
Yeah, yeah. I know, you know, when I'm looking at recommending somebody, sometimes I have a sense that somebody could be really excellent at what they're doing. But if they don't give me some ammunition that I can, you know, give to somebody else, and they're going to say, why are you wasting my time, Tim? Like, I'm a busy guy. I can't be waiting around for somebody to suddenly emerge. They've got to have at least one thing There's got to be at least one thing that they're happy with that you can say, here, check this out. This is indicative of what I think this person can do.
Mm-hmm. Like the other thing that I did during this sort of the creation or the development and ideation or whatever term you want to throw on it, right? Developing our logo and our branding idea was, I said, when you're, just don't send me the Photoshop files and Illustrator files, take pictures of your sketchbook stuff and shoot that my way too. And it was interesting because there's a lot of just, little doodles, like little, you're sitting watching TV and you do something goofy, right? But those little things actually found its way into the logo design.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the creative direction that you're going outside of the graphic design and so forth, Andrew.
Yes.
What's going to be on the menu aside from like the Big Tim?
The Big Tim, that will be part of the secret menu. Only certain people will be able to get access to that. With
this guy's named Tim.
We'll build some kind of cool, Facebook game, social something or other, right?
You got to unlock the Big Tim.
You got to unlock unlock, right? You've unlocked the Big Tim. That'd be awesome. No, we're looking at doing something a little bit different, and it's a lot of it's from advertising, right? You sort of see what everybody else is doing, and you do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Or close to the exact opposite.
Blue ocean strategy.
Yeah, and sort of and approach it that way. So even even our branding name is sort of a play on that as well. Our logo design is a play off that. Our food items, we're looking at doing one constant thing you see in everything is, the food trucks, oh, it's so good, but it's so bad for you, right? And,
right.
That's fine. Like that's your, that's why you go to some of this stuff, right? Our approach is a little bit different, but, still offer the, that experience and that sense of, oh my God, this is really good. But not have it, as bad for you as it has to be. We're looking at doing low carb, low glycemic, so diabetics could enjoy some of this stuff as well.
Yeah.
We're looking at a bunch of different replacements for sugar. Not necessarily, like my biggest thing, like I'm not a big, artificial flavored thing. That was my big thing, like eating food was, the taste of aspartame and those tastes that you get off some things. So we spent a lot of time looking and researching different sweeteners that taste like sugar. You don't know that it's a replacement. It was actually when we took the kids on a family vacation a year ago now, I guess, right? The boat we were on, they had a menu of a bunch of sugar-free desserts.
Yeah.
And I still remember we looked through it and went, okay, there's no way those are sugar-free. So we ordered cheesecake and creme brulee, 2 different things. And it was like, oh my God, that's got sugar in it for sure. Like it was like there was that shock.
They're
and
lying
awe.
to us.
Well, it was that moment you try to get in the advertising of, aha, like that's it. That's what we want to do. So we ended up speaking with the pastry chef on the boat. We went to a couple cooking classes on the boat. We got the name of some of the different sweeteners that they use for some of these products. So then when we got back, we actually ended up sourcing where these things are, and most of it's out of the States, which like most stuff is. But even talking with them, they were like totally excited. We found a great company in the States that has a low carb flour. So it has carbs, but the net carbs are well below what normal flour is. Even got to the point where they said, hey, would you be interested in baking product for us? Because we have people driving an hour and a half to buy a $12 loaf of bread because they can't get it where they're at.
Yeah.
I said,
So
well,
being able to introduce that into a new area.
Yeah, and we said we'd love to, but we're in Canada, so the shipping costs.
And they said Canada, and they hung up.
No, they were actually really cool. Like we were talking to them about like shipping, like cost of shipping stuff up, and if we could, to the point of even using them as part of the advertising on the truck to advertise their brand. Like if we're using your product, why not we can help each other out that way.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that way, and being From our research so far, being a low carb, low glycemic, sort of a paleo inspired diet, I think we'll probably be the first truck in Canada officially sort of being branded as that kind of model.
Yeah, it's not a usual direction.
No,
I think.
And everybody I've talked to, and I've done my own sort of market research where, hey, we're going to do a food truck and it's going to be low carb, and exactly the same reaction from everybody is, oh, really? That sounds good. But that tells me, we're
Well, the perception of low carb
and
is that there's compromise.
That's sort of the exciting part of this, is being able to present, a quality product that, people that aren't into the low carb, or trying to recapture that moment when we were on the boat and you taste that dessert for the first time and go, there's no way this has got no sugar and it's low carb. It's just no way that something could taste like cheesecake or creme brulee or something like that, right?
So would the idea then be, to have the food stand on its own, and then the surprise is that
almost try to, let the customer experience that sense of awe and and discovery and that excitement of going, I could, I don't have to eat what I've been eating before. I can actually enjoy, desserts that, are real desserts. They look like desserts. It's not like, you go to the party and have the big birthday cake, and then the no sugar birthday cake is, that doesn't look all that appetizing. I want the big piece.
Yeah.
But trying to recapture that moment, and that's where we're going with our designing, our branding, and even our menu items. Like we'll have, sort of the set standard menu items that we're still working on. We're still coming up with some different ideas, but also have, sort of that social aspect of it as well. Like, if you're following us on Twitter, 1 week we'll have a limited number of, off menu items for sale. And, if you're following us on Twitter, then, you get the secret code or something, whatever it is, right? But have some fun, like have that excitement again, and sort of that creative joy, and, that will, when we're looking at building the truck, the first question, and even in the books, it's like, what kind of food do you want to serve? Because that's going to determine how you set up your kitchen in your truck. I would be bored to death if I had to do the exact thing over and over and over again. So like
it would kind of
you
kind of defy the point of
like you do need it to the extent of you have your menu items that are the favorites that everybody's going to come to and they want to have the same experience, but then having that off menu item that something a little bit different, that hey, do you want to try this out, and if we get enough people liking it, maybe it will become part of the rotation of the menu.
I think I can see all kinds of ways that this would be popular with people. Like if you're a parent, I don't know any parent that wants a kid jammed full of sugar. Because you're gonna pay for that, right? You know what I mean? Like the kid loves it at first, but then you're gonna have to deal with that kid for like the next couple of hours as they're bouncing off the back seat.
Yeah, I've experienced that a few
times. Dad's ready
times.
to drive the family wagon over a cliff, kind of thing. And like even for young people, for guys and stuff, like we're pretty conscious of not putting on the spare tire anymore, and so having an alternative like that is convenient and is, kind of fun to go and visit, and at the same time doesn't jam our arteries full of pork fat.
Oh, there'll be pork fat. Don't get me wrong, because that's flavor. Fat is flavor.
Yeah.
But things like one item we're looking at is a variation of a taco, like not necessarily we've been looking at some fish taco options, but good creative example, like right in the kitchen. A couple of weeks ago, I was trying out a concept of coconut shrimp, like scratch made from using coconut flour, coconut milk, and actually breading these things by hand, which would be a nightmare, but that's sort of the quality that we're looking at. So on their own, they tasted awesome, but as soon as you put them in the wraps, the coconut flavor it disappeared. So we, tried a couple different variations of it. We tried it in a lettuce wrap, which seemed to work a lot better. It also sort of follows that paleo inspired that we're trying to go for. But sort of just on a whim, we also had some chicken there. And I went, hey, let's do coconut chicken hush puppies. Mix some of that up, threw it in the fryer, and that will probably be one of the items. That's inside scoop already, right?
All right.
So
Exclusive.
We'll
Nice.
probably have I'm thinking of a chicken and probably a pork coconut hush puppy in some kind of wrap, which was pretty delicious, I might say so. But that was like an opportunity where, this didn't quite work how we were thinking. Let's try something, a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
It's like a laboratory almost.
Yeah, pretty much. And especially what we find, because we're trying to do this low carb and no sugar, you have to be pretty creative on how you're looking at recipes and trying to convert them into a recipe that works, that still has elements of what you're used to. Like we're trying to figure out a replacement for French fries.
Oh, okay.
Right?
All right. Good luck with that one, man.
We found a possible lead, but we've been trying, different, deep frying, different artichokes and celery root, and like my big thing is you're trying to recapture the texture.
It's
like
the texture.
That's the texture that
Yeah.
you're trying to, and we haven't quite nailed it, but we're close on a couple ideas. So, but that's what
why
I
like McDonald's fries are insanely popular.
Those things come out of a tube.
The thing is, like, they're so weird because when you get them and they're hot, you're like, oh, nah, you got to have more of them.
But don't get them when they're
But
cold.
like 10 minutes later, you're like,
No more fries.
I'm eating cardboard. What? So I do believe it is all about the texture there.
Yeah, like texture, taste, all those elements that come in. It's the craftsmanship and the artistic portion of cooking and developing these food tastes. What I also like, because I find it very similar to working in Photoshop or like that.
It's
creative
another
things,
design
right?
challenge.
Yeah, and it hits. The nice thing about the food is it does hit all those five senses.
Right.
Which
That's something we can never do online.
That's the golden plateau of advertising, right?
Yeah.
Can you hit everything that people remember? Like, you could even think back in your, when was the last time you had a really good homemade hamburger that was just amazing? And in your mind, you can probably pinpoint the exact place, time, what was on it.
Yeah.
How you felt, what was on the TV, who you're like. You have all the senses all come back based on something you ate.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the reverse is also true. You can probably remember very clearly the last time you had something that you really hated.
Oh yeah.
You don't really forget that.
Yes, I had a bad oyster, and that was good times.
Oh man.
Good times. I still
Yeah,
remember that.
I think about even back to being a kid. You remember when there's something that just turns you off.
Yeah, I still remember something like parsnips. Do that again. My mic. I remember back at a time with my mom cooking parsnips, instant headache. For whatever reason. I don't know what, it was the smell or something like that.
Yeah.
But now I like them. I like roasting them on the barbecue. I still have that. You still smell whatever the smell was from it that triggered that headache is, maybe it's matured. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird how you get these little, flashbacks of something you ate that you completely forgot about, right? Like when we're on the boat, like we won't forget, ordering, cheesecake, creme brulee, and going, oh my God, that's not sugar-free. Give me another one.
Good food accentuates an experience.
Well, that was one of the first things we tried doing when we got back, is recreating that.
Yeah.
Can we create the creme brulee, get it creamy, and the trick is to get that nice, creme brulee. It's all about that crunch of the sugar on top, right?
Yes.
So we found like some of the different sugar replacements. What we found will actually crystallize like real sugar.
No kidding.
I made up yesterday. I just made up a salted caramel based on the replacement sugars that we found that will melt. It tastes like sugar. So yeah, like this is, for me, like, it's pretty exciting to be able to take something you're familiar with, but then, modify it and change it and be a little creative with it and present it to somebody and have them experience that sense of awe and that sense of, not wonder, but, that disbelief, right?
Right.
I can't believe that's,
Yeah, that's kind of just the over the top portion of it. Yeah, I think it's really exciting, Andrew, and definitely wishing you all the best on this.
Thank you.
Are you still planning on doing like a tasting event kind of thing? Is that?
Yes, I think you have offered to do, some hosting of that.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I'd like to do is,
But I get to taste everything.
Oh yeah,
Like everything.
You can help divine the the secret sandwich. We'll come up with a concept for that.
This is going to be a several-year project, I think.
That's fine. We got time.
Yeah. I mean, if the name's going on, then it's got to be.
Yeah, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah,
it's got to be perfect. No, one thing I do want to do with doing some of the tasting stuff is I do have an idea that we've talked about a little bit. It's going to be a little, maybe a little bit of a change from sort of the regular release stuff like this. One element I do want to bring in is the sort of the build of the project. Like have Steve come in and show the progression of our logo design from, here's the doodles to, here's the finished thing.
All right, Andrew, this has been a really great interview. I'd like to thank you for being my first live guest on the show.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Yeah, it's been great. You know who I got coming up? Is Kyle Boylan.
Nice.
Remember that guy?
Yes, I do.
Yep. So he's going to be on the show. He's going to talk a little bit. I'm either going to catch him. He'll either be here, or I'm going to make him like our first call-in guy.
Oh,
yeah, I can actually take calls on the show now, which is pretty cool.
Nice. Are you gonna have like a screenshot of him, like a really embarrassing like photo of him?
I was thinking what I might do is put it up and like make something so that people can draw on it while we're talking.
Like
give them like sweet monocle and
top hats.
Black out the tooth or something.
How funny would that be?
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Make a little group participation thing.
Then you could like save them up and we could have everybody vote.
Yep, and that'll be our VFX.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
So we're gonna have him on, and got a few other guys that I'm hoping to reach out to, and hopefully when they see what we're doing here, they'll be down with coming on board the show. We've covered a lot of ground here, so I think what's gonna happen is I'm gonna grab the highlights and we'll put that up on the actual Facebook in the Morning show.
Yep.
But I'm gonna make the whole thing available as audio podcast, so people can just tune in and give it a listen while they're doing whatever they're doing.
Very cool.
So I really want to thank you for being on the show, and thank you to Jen for also
finding out how to get the money to get this thing going. Yes.
I was going to say letting you out.
Well, she's fine for letting me out, but like she had huge credit because peaks and valleys on starting stuff up, and she was able to figure out how we could actually get this thing going with with a budget that wasn't as much as we were sort of shooting for, but you work with what you can work with, right?
Nobody does it on their own, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's that's one reason why I'm reaching out to you and looking at hiring like some former students and stuff like that is give them a chance to work on a project, but also give them, the chance to make mistakes that, because it's just sort of between us, that it keeps it contained where, what they're learning, working on this stuff, they can easily scale up to client work or agency work or whatever they want to do, right?
Yep. It's a good way to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, sir.
No problem. So I think after the show, we're going to probably head on over and grab a wobbly pop.
Sure.
And
that's when all the best ideas happen.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some Facebook stuff we could do.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Andrew.
Have a good one. Where's my Airwolf music?
Oh, hold on.
It's gotta go out.
Where's the Airwolf? There we go.
No editing. It's all live. This has all been live. No cuts at all.
On that note, we're out. It is there. But I turned this off because I was getting some...